Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about goalie interference. It seems like it's a topic of conversation again. There was a request for me to do a video talking about it. I looked over the channel. I haven't done a video specifically on goalie interference for a long time, and there's a reason. Generally speaking, watching games when goals are called back or goals are allowed, I kind of agree with the call, and it doesn't matter who I cheer for, who's playing who, and I don't get mad and throw things when it doesn't go my way. And I understand that there are people who don't like the way that the rule is called, and they don't understand the way the rule is called. I did find a good article written by Down Goes Brown on The Athletic from June of last year. It still applies because it's still an issue. It's still something we talk about a lot, right? And there's a lot of, well, the goalie couldn't save it, the goalie could save it, and all that discussion. So I got some notes on the board here, a couple that I took from the Down Goes Brown article. And it definitely is Rule 69.1, which, yeah, that's what she said, whatever. It does, I think, cause the loudest ref you suck chance. I don't know that it causes the most, depends on the game, but it definitely causes the loudest chance. The interesting thing is the referee has nothing to do with that call. The referee makes the call on the ice, and then he gets on the phone, and it's Toronto that makes the call. And so the league makes the call. They are, I think, relatively consistent with it. I say relatively because there are a couple of times where I'm kind of head scratching and going, really? I don't know. But there is definitely some subjectiveness to the rule, and I think that's the problem with it. I think if there's a problem with the rule, it's the fact that there is some subjectivity to it. I don't think there's a lot, but I think there's enough there that it makes people upset with some of the rulings that come down from Toronto. So the biggest question, again, credit to Down Goes Brown with this, because it does make it pretty simple. Did the contact happen inside the crease or outside the crease? So, you are the attacking player. You have the right to be anywhere on the ice. You do not have the right to go into the goalie's crease. So, if the contact's in the crease, odds are it's no goal. It does not mean that it's a penalty. So that was the debate too, and I remember years ago, that was my concern was, well, wait a minute, if that goal doesn't count, why isn't it a penalty? Because it doesn't have to be. Contacting the goalie and not letting them make the play doesn't mean it's necessarily a penalty. It can be incidental, but incidental can still be goaltender interference. So it can be bad enough to take the goal off the board, but not bad enough that the player has to go sit in the box for a couple of minutes, right? So if the goalie's domain is the crease, that's the number one consideration, right? Okay, does contact happen inside the crease? Outside the crease doesn't mean that the goaltender is free game, right? Like you can't just run the goalie because he's behind the net playing the puck. The goaltender at times, and it depends on the goalie. I have seen goaltenders come out of the net to come back behind the net and play the puck and then run some interference, but that's penalty. So if you come out and you get in the way because there's a player on the other team coming around and you get hit, you're technically the one committing the interference there. So the goaltender can get penalized for that. But again, players can have incidental contact. So the goaltender's out ready to play the shot. You've got a screen in front. Let's just say, just a name, Buchnevich. So Buchnevich has a play at the net. He's standing in front. There's a puck coming in from Torrey Krug's at the point, getting ready to shoot it, and Shalgren's in net for Toronto. So he can screen Shalgren. If Shalgren comes outside the crease to cut down the angle, and then he makes contact with Shalgren's glove, Buchnevich isn't necessarily guilty of goalie interference because he has the right to be in that part of the ice. And if it's incidental, the league can say, well, the goalie came outside of his crease. The player's allowed to be there. And that's where sometimes we get the arguments, right? Of, well, wait, he bumped the goaltender. Well, the goaltender was outside of his crease. So the attacking player's allowed to be there. If the goaltender's in his crease and the player comes in and makes contact, then it's not allowed. And then there's the argument, too, of the goaltender may be inside his crease, the glove might be outside of it. So the glove's out ahead, and then a player hits it. And so, again, the glove's outside the crease. So that's where the judgment call comes from the league on what to do from there. And that's where, of course, fans are going to disagree with whatever the call is. Now, again, the incidental contact is a thing that will take place. This is a very fast game. These are big players, and they're trying to get goals, and so there's going to be incidental contact at times. One question that does come up a lot with goalie interference, does the goalie have enough time to reset? So again, Shalgren comes out of his net, takes a little bit of a bump. He gets back into the crease. The puck goes into the net. So maybe he goes back into the crease. He's got his glove. He's got his blocker ready. Puck goes into the net. Then when they're taking a look on the review, they can go, okay, there was contact with the goaltender behind the net. Incidental. He had time to reset, so it's a goal. He didn't have time to reset, so it's goalie interference. And that is a question that comes up a lot of, did he have time to reset? And we've seen many, many replays where the argument will be, and when these incidents are going on, and if I have access to both feeds, so the home and away feed, I like to switch back and forth between both and see, is there a bias in how the announcers are presenting this? So again, with Shalgren gets a bump, or Shalgren doesn't quite have time to set up. Are the announcers on the Toronto feed saying, well, this is clearly goalie interference, while the announcers for the St. Louis feed are saying, we think he had time to reset? Because I think that matters too, is how it's portrayed by the on-air personalities. And there are some on-air personalities that are actually quite fair, and they're really neutral on these things. And there are some announcers that my jaw drops because of how biased they sound. Or I'm like, okay, seriously, your team is not made up of saints. Please stop complaining about every single penalty that they get while complaining about penalties not being called on the other team that don't seem to be that bad either, comparatively speaking, with the ones you're complaining about. You're like, there are announcers that do this, and they'll isolate on players and go, look, that's clearly interference, and then this one's called, this one. And again, for fans watching at home, they could be like, well, yeah, look, they're right, we're getting screwed. So yeah, it definitely happens where that narrative starts to really pick up, right? And there are some announcers who will do that a lot. And again, it depends on the announce crew, but there are definitely some announcers who will often complain. And again, I know people will say, well, you're a Canucks fan. Oh, there's absolutely times where Garrett and Shorthouse will be a little bit of a bias in there, but then they'll admit it. They will usually admit it, and they usually have a good sense of humor about that kind of thing. And I think they're pretty fair too. When it's a goalie interference call, very often Garrett will be like, I think this one's coming back, even if it's a Canucks goal. So did a defending player push the attacking player into the goaltender? This is also open to interpretation. So now you've got the attacking player. Again, we'll go with Buchnevich and Shalgren, because I don't know that this has ever actually happened. And so Buchnevich is the attacking player, and maybe Justin Hall gives him a little bit of a push, right? Back towards the goaltender as the shot's being taken. Well, maybe Buchnevich goes, okay, so I've got a little bit of a push. I can kind of push off on the goalie then, right? Cool. And so that then is an incident where they look and go, okay, did he intentionally push the goaltender there and interfere? Or was this because the defending player was pushing him towards the goaltender and he was trying to steady himself? And then again, that's where the subjectivity comes in, of whether or not the attacking player is guilty in that situation. And again, it's not about a penalty, because that's not going to be a penalty, but it also means it's not a goal, right? So in real time, a referee watching that play might go, no goal, because Buchnevich went in and clearly pulled the goaltender, or clearly hit the goaltender there, and interfered and didn't let him make the play. But then the coach, Craig Berube, calls the ref over and goes, hey, I want to challenge that. So they look on the replay and they go, you know what? Yeah, Buchnevich hits the goalie, but it's because Hall pushed him in. So because Hall pushes him in, and he didn't have a chance to get out of the way, well, that's not on Buchnevich, that's on Hall, and therefore it's a good goal. And so they'll go, we on replay have overturned this, and then Toronto fans will either understand and go, yeah, that's fine, or they'll get very angry, right? So that's part of the argument too. And did the attacking player try at all to avoid contact? Is a question that comes up, and again, it does get to be subjective. There is some subjectivity to this, but I haven't seen a lot of calls that when they get made, I've said, wait, what? And I think part of it is because with as much hockey as I watch, I think they're pretty consistent with it. Am I saying it's 100%? No. Am I saying there are calls that maybe the rule could be punched up a little bit so there's no gray areas? Sure. Although I don't think people would like it, because if the NHL decided, okay, there's too much gray area here, we want to get rid of it, they're going to lean towards protecting the goaltenders. So it's going to become a situation where any contact at all, it's no goal. And just that would be the way that they would lead if they were going to make a change to that rule. It would be to protect the goaltenders rather than saying, you know what, we're going to let more of those go in. I thought about including offside challenges with this too, and I thought, no, this is going to be enough of a talking point. Goalie interference is always a hot button topic. I will put on review boards GI challenge, and to be honest, when I see the replay, if I think it's goalie interference, I take the goal magnet off the board, I erase the goal, and I put it back on the puck or on the goal magnet board, and I'm like, nah, that's not going to count. And usually it's an accurate call, and it is because I watch as much as I do, and I kind of know where that line is. But there are times that I'm wrong. Absolutely, yep. But I think the NHL does its best. I know that there's discussion over who they screw over more than others, and that's a whole other topic for a whole other time. I know that The Athletic did a whole article on which team gets screwed over the most by officials. So that's there. I haven't actually looked through it. I didn't bother. But it is an interesting topic of conversation, goalie interference, because I think that the NHL doesn't always explain it very well. The NHL itself, I think, would do well to have, I don't know if workshop's the right way to put it, but just over a summer or over an off season, have like a 45-minute video where you're going over every single incident of whether or not it's goalie interference, and just explain. Just say, so here's a goal, here's why it was, here's a goal, here's why it didn't count. And just go through them. Go through them and say, this is why this one counted, this why this one didn't. Now, is it going to convince fans that they're right? No. Is it going to convince fans that there's no bias one way or the other? No. But would it be a nice gesture? I think it would be. With offsides, I think it's pretty cut and dried. The argument, of course, with offsides is if it doesn't affect the goal, should it actually be called back? And I think there's an argument to be had there. With goalie interference, I don't think there's going to be a change. And again, I haven't done this video talking about this for a long time because I used to stand here and say, I don't understand what goalie interference is. Now I really think I get it, in part because of how much hockey I watch and how many times I've seen the challenge fail and how many times I've seen the challenge succeed. And I always watch that replay, and I always try to listen for the NHL's explanation too, because this has to be tough for them. Like you're in the war room, you're looking at this, and you're going, okay, is this goalie interference? And there's times it takes a long time because they're trying to make sure they get it right. And, in the end, there are people who are not going to agree, in part because there is a subjectivity to the way that the rule is called, the way that it's enforced, and to what qualifies as goalie interference and what doesn't. So there you go. Like I said, it is one of those things that if you go down the rabbit hole and you do a Google search, you'll find articles debating goalie interference that date back well past a decade ago. It is not a new conversation. It is not a new debate. But I think they're calling it pretty consistently now in comparison with where it was 5 years ago, where even the players were complaining that what is goalie interference. I don't see that as much now. There's still complaints from players about certain rules and certain things being called correctly, but I haven't seen that with goalie interference as much. But that being said, I will turn the conversation over to you fine people. And so 2 questions. 1, if you believe that the rule doesn't work, how would you fix it? Is all contact goalie interference? Should it be where more are being allowed? There's some contact allowed. Let me know your thoughts. And when is a goalie really and truly set? Because, boy, that's been a conversation at times too. And when I hear the goalie had time to get reset, they felt that they could allow the goal. There have been times I've looked at it and gone, but did he? Did he have time to get reset? But anyways, let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I'm sorry that I don't have a definitive answer on this with like where I could, stand on an ice surface with skates on in front of a goalie and just say, this is interference, this isn't. Could do that at some point, but not right now. Anyways, let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.